Well, hey, it never fails. Someone always asks me, "Hey, Heather, what about?" And honestly, that's where the best conversations begin. I'm Heather Shaw, certified functional nutrition coach and Pilates educator. After walking through my own wellness journey, hello 80-pound weight loss, I now light the path through my program, The Plan, complete with protein forward recipes, hormone know how, and a lifestyle for longevity. This is the Exquisite House Pilates and Wellness podcast. Hey Heather, what about? We're diving into all things movement, menopause, metabolism, and more, especially the stuff no one warned us about. I tell it like it is, but always with a wink and a hug. No perfection required, just consistency, curiosity, and better questions, served up with a side of sass. I am so excited to share with you my next interviewee, and that is Miss Tricia Mazza. She is a therapist here in the Richmond area, and she's also a Pilates aficionado. Of course, she does Pilates. Why would we be surprised that I would be interviewing anybody that doesn't do Pilates? But Tricia has a really unique kind of approach to therapy, and I really love the conversations that she and I have had over our time that we've worked together, and are very akin as far as just our kind of overall thinking. Also, she's a little bit of a badass. Like, we're not surprised that that's one of the people that I adore anyways. But we're just going to kind of get into some of the things that I have curiosities about how we are impacted through menopause with our psychological mental health, and go from there. So, Tricia, tell us a little bit about you and your what you do and your specialty and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I've been a therapist for about 15 years, and I've had my practice for a little over 4. And I work mainly, only exclusively with adults on a variety of things. But if I had to say a specialty, definitely understanding and helping people with trauma, helping people understand narcissism and how to recover. And then probably the third would be navigating grief. And then actually a fourth is probably helping people navigate understanding their childhood experiences.
Love that. And for you, how does menopause intersect with mental health and emotional resilience?
I mean, my mind is blown on this piece of data that I recently learned, which is the correlation between estrogen and neurotransmitters.
Yep.
So it blew my mind because I was like, I've never come across this piece of information. Why have I not ever heard about this? But understanding how when we are low in estrogen, which is naturally occurring, happens no matter what we do, it's biological. And so as that dips, so too then do our neurotransmitters. And so what
Right.
that means is we are going to have a hard time navigating life. Our mood is going to be chaotic and all over the place. We're going to experience depression, anxiety, feelings of dread, panic, and probably in ways that we've never felt before because we've never had our estrogen dip. Welcome to midlife. So it is remarkable to me how I did not know about that until recently, and makes sense why other providers that I've gone to in the past never brought that up, never correlated my age to any depression I may have been having. So
Wow.
it is everything.
Well, and it kind of, for me, it kind of explains, like, I had this like rage. I got real
Yeah.
ragey. I was like, I'm a pretty even keel person until, we always talk about this because you're from big city. We're from different coasts,
Yeah.
but we always joke about, like, I'm going to kill somebody. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't say that. Let me start over. So we joke all the time about being from big cities, and like I got really ragey, and I realized that progesterone is kind of our big loving calming sister, but our estrogen is kind of our little badass big sister, and she does help us kind of stay in that good kind of midline space. And It's amazing how once I started HRT, my mood came, my capacity, like my emotional resiliency, it was like
Yeah.
functional. And I'm like, where was I 10 years before this when I didn't realize that I just needed a little kick, of a
Yeah.
little bit of replacement of those hormones? What are some of the common emotional challenges women face during this transition, and how can they navigate them?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Increased irritability to the point of rage. We underestimate the female rage. I think all all women can understand this sense of like not in a legitimate I'm need to be hospitalized because I'm going to commit a crime, but the sense of like I'm going to punch a wall because I have so much rage. So there's the irritability and the rage aspect, and then so much of it can feel unfamiliar in terms of, for me, what I was hit with that I had never felt before, which I'm not unfamiliar with depression, but this feeling of dread,
Yes.
of overarching, just what is any of this anymore? And that was really kind of freaky because I'm like, I'm observing it while I'm experiencing it. Um, so there's that. My gosh, the ability to handle stress, I think, is a big one. A lot of people come to me and they're like, life really hasn't changed very much, but I've changed my ability to handle it. And all of a sudden, I can't handle my life anymore. And what is going on? And honestly, prior to understanding the way hormones impact our mood, I was like, well, it's probably some unresolved trauma. And that may be true, but
Yeah.
we're also missing the biological piece of, well, if your estrogen is dipping, then so too will your mood and your ability
Yeah.
to handle stress. And so we're
Yeah.
pathologizing these things that actually have a biological basis. So, I mean, knowledge really is power in that way. But I mean, the list goes on for how it can impact our mood in ways that we're not even realizing it because it may be subtle at first. And we think, oh, it's just stress. Oh, I'm just too tired. But it's something more than that.
Wow. I find that just fascinating because I think about all the people that I know that like go through a huge midlife tumult and they divorce or they have a huge career change or it's not, maybe it isn't what you're saying is that potentially it's not that they've just gotten fed up with their spouse, but more it's the reality that there's there they have a hormone imbalance, and it's really as simple as, like, just fix the hormones and potentially they'll still like that person. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. And it is that complicated and it is that simple because I've had some, not many, but I have some people who've like pushed back on the idea of like, well, maybe kind of talk to a doctor about HRT or learn more about how our hormones affect our inability to handle stress,
yeah.
or the sense of not being able to. And I've gotten a lot of pushback where they're like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. Like, well, what do you yeah, it doesn't happen often, but I have had it happen, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Well, we just won't focus on that then," which is such a disservice to that person because it could, again, be as simple or as complicated as that.
When you have those people, do they give you a legitimate excuse? Are they still focused on the World Women's Health Initiative report that came out in 2002 where they said that, if we have hormone replacement, we're gonna get cancer or we're gonna die or whatever? Are they still coming working off that premise? Yeah.
It could be, that could be driving it, but I think there's like almost, yeah, maybe it is driven by that because I wanna say that it sort of seems like it's a lack of, "Oh, that's not legitimate."
Wow.
Like, if you're telling me that, like, "You're my therapist, you shouldn't be talking to me about hormones, I'm not interested in that." And then there's also this additional sense of, like, "But I can't control that as much as I can control something else, maybe."
Oh,
Um, so I think that it's a little bit of, like, yeah, I don't wanna talk about that. I don't think that's relevant to me in my life, even though it could be
very.
a woman who is experiencing menopause.
Or perimenopause, because I think about
Yeah.
that shift because you're not quite 10 years younger than me, or a little bit more than that, and you're starting to see that shift. And we,
Yes.
like Karen was saying when we were talking, she's like, I just hear little sound bites from Heather in the studio, and the next thing I know, I'm like running to the doctor. And I know that it was a similar thing with you where you were like, why is this the topic? And wait a minute, this could actually be a thing. And then the next thing I know, you're like, Heather, I went to the doctor. Like, I am trying this. And I mean, you said you had a definite shift in your own life
Yeah.
from that. Yeah.
Yeah. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think I told you this, like looking back on it, I'm 42. And if I look back on it, right around the age of 38 was when I started to feel like life is starting to feel a little harder. But I mean, similar, I guess, to my clients in a way. I'm like, well, I should be doing this differently, or I can do that better. And I really was honestly not thinking about hormones, which sounds silly now in hindsight. But I really did not stop to think there could be a biological basis for this. I'm like, I should just
Yeah.
try harder because that's what we do as women, right? We try harder, we work harder, whatever. What can I fix? But this past summer, it was like all of a sudden I blinked and I had a list of like over 20 symptoms that I was experiencing. And wanting to like jump out of my body mixed with dread. I'm like, I've never experienced this before. And knowing the little bit that I knew about menopause through you, and again, similar to Karen's point of just being a part of these conversations by observing it, I'm like, yeah, this is, I think, what she's talking about. And I remember the day you were like, oh, hi, how are you? And I'm like, I am not good. And you're like, what? That's not what you normally say. It
Mm,
must be
yeah.
bad if you're actually saying it's not good. And I was like, I'm not sleeping. I want to jump out of my skin. I want to punch a wall. I'm like crying all of the time. I'm waking up drenched. I'm like, this. And you gave me the checklist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shit. Boom, 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 boom. Like almost all of them. And then the very next day I made an appointment and got on HRT. And yeah, haven't looked back.
I love that. So for the people who don't know or haven't been in the studio, part of what we do is we do an intake with our clients, and we have a
Yeah.
little sheet that we ask them to fill out. But the other thing that we do that probably drives the younger folks crazy, and I don't, obviously it's age appropriate, but if I know someone's in midlife, I'm usually like, I want you to take this home. It's a little menopause symptom checklist. And it's actually from the UK. There was a phenomenal um, practitioner she was actually, I can't remember, she was a Pilates practitioner and OBGYN, but she was a gal who worked overseas, and she was being interviewed by one of the Pilates educators that I follow. And I was like, this is magic. I have to have this checklist. And it was
Yeah.
the same type of thing where it was like, she just would say, just look at this just for your own edification. And what I find is, and I did it with my own doctor. My doctor was like, I don't need this. And I'm like, actually, you do, because you actually need to see what these symptoms are. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to advocate for myself. And she like looked at the
Right.
nurse and she's
Right.
like, okay, put it in her chart. Just put it in her chart. But I'm sure that for you, it was very helpful to be able to have a point of conversation for the doctor to be able to say, hey, this is what actually is going on.
It's everything. It's everything, because I think it's safe to say that every woman who lives in America, probably beyond the age of 25, although probably before, has experienced some level of medical gaslight where we're like, hey, I'm experiencing this. And they're like, oh, it's fine. Your lab work is normal. So everything is fine. It's all in your head. Like we're still having to combat that. And so by just the sheer action of you putting this checklist into people's hands, even if they feel like, well, I don't really relate to it, just having the knowledge out there and the accessibility, it absolutely becomes this empowering tool, because knowledge really is power. And if we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the power. And it is interesting, like trying to find the right provider who's then willing to have that conversation and not just continue the gaslight.
Yeah. 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 Because we have people in the studio that we refer to, like, they don't even know that we refer to them. We know who they are.
Yeah.
And I've told my doctor, I'm sending people to you, so just be prepared. But, were you able to find someone fairly easily in our area?
So I found somebody online. I do have somebody in the area, but it was like a month and a half wait for her first appointment. And I was like, I cannot wait that long because I will punch somebody and I do not want to. I will lose my license. Like, that's not my brand. I'm not, but I will. I will punch a bitch. I really will. So I couldn't wait. And so I found somebody online and I made an appointment, had to wait maybe a week. And then that day I got started on HRT. And
Good.
again, I have not and will not look back. It's crazy to think that it was not that long ago because of how different I already feel. And even though there are still some symptoms, of course, it's not all of a sudden I'm better, but my God, the quality of life automatically improves. So even to go from severe symptoms to mild to moderate, it's livable, it's doable, it's workable. Because again, you start to feel like, oh, I can solve this. I can work on this instead of I am literally up to here and I'm about to suffocate with overwhelm.
Yeah, yeah, and I always joke that HRT is like Botox, you can't love it or hate it for 10 days.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
true. You need that time. So, for now that we've talked about the HRT
yeah.
topic, tell me a little bit more from a therapeutic standpoint. How can women through this transition reconnect with their sense of self? I mean, their lives are changing. I mean, you've watched me. I go from like empty nester to now I'm sandwich generation because I've got daddy with me. And are there things from a therapeutic perspective that we can do to help support this, in addition to kind of just gaining our regular coping skills? Obviously, therapy I'm a huge proponent for because it has changed my life, and I am exactly out of jail. No, I'm kidding. I've never been to jail, but I've stayed out of jail because of my wonderful therapist, and I so
Yeah.
appreciate her. But talk a little bit into that.
Well, homicidal rage is real, right? It's yes. Yes, 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 yes. Anyway, we will not talk about the crimes we didn't almost commit.
Thank you.
I think that's such an important question, and I was thinking about this, and I'm like, yeah, that's really when you think about it, how do we connect to ourselves in general? And so much of that, our nervous systems, I always say, are forever infants. And so we need the things
Mm,
that infants need. So we need to make sure that we are sleeping well, that we are eating well. And one of the things that makes infants so fun to be around is that we get to like make funny faces at them and then they mirror something back.
yeah,
So that's actually the basis of attachment and of connection. But so when we're as adults going through a hardship, that's in part why it's so important to have a small few, or even just a one, honestly, of people who see you and
yeah,
who understand without having to forcefully prove yourself, over explain yourself, but to be seen. There's a
yeah.
beautiful quote that Portia de Rossi said about Ellen years ago in one of their anniversary shows, which she quoted somebody else. But to be loved is beautiful, but to be understood is profound.
Wow. Yes.
So such a part of how we see ourselves is through relationships with other people who see us too.
Yeah.
So that is cannot be understated. Joan Erickson, who worked with her husband Eric Erickson, who developed the psychosocial stages of development. Joan Erickson is like the grandma I never met. She's
Oh.
amazing, but she differentiated in the research the difference between young old and old old.
Oh.
And yes, the way you stay young old is through our connections with people. And obviously, staying connected to playfulness, imagination, not taking yourself too seriously, always having a glass of wine, like, being able to enjoy life
Yeah.
and really living it, not just existing like old people do. And the
Wow.
difference is the connection. So we really gain a sense of self by having people who understand and see us for what we're going through. And we can't understate that. No amount of therapy can make up for a lack of a social support system, which is also where when you talk about the third space that you've
Yeah.
created for people,
Yeah.
that speaks to that need and how foundational it is. And I think that's why people are drawn to you and the types of people that are drawn to you in your studio, because they're just like very quietly like, I need this too. Like
Yeah.
way more than the movement, I need the connection.
Yeah. 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 I think it is something that I've worked really hard to. I don't wanna say curate because it's not really a curation of like a I'm not crafting something behind the scenes. I'm not the wizard behind the curtain. I'm very much like from an authentic place saying like, "I need community." You know, a lot of us that are in the studio are not r native to our area. We've been transplants from somewhere else, and for me, that was a really hard place to be. I was like, "I need to find some people who, like, get me." And amazingly, it's most of my East Coast girlies that get me, which I'm so thankful for because y'all I need y'all to show up. It's awesome. Um, so help with us. What are some of the tools or practices that you find are most effective for women in this phase of life?
Making sure, I thought a lot about this one too, making sure that you are not talking shit to yourself on a daily basis.
Your inner saboteur is sitting down.
Yes, sit down and be quiet. Like that's uh, there's a piece of research that came out of the world of positive psychology quite a while ago, and I've referenced it so much, but the statistic that they came out with, I think, was like over 80% of the time on default mode, cognitively, we are thinking negatively and talking negatively to and about ourselves.
Mhm.
So, the point of that research was to highlight that being kind to ourselves, having compassion and patience for ourselves takes practice and takes intention and takes a lot of deliberate action before it becomes any bit of a habit.
Mm,
So, when you're going through these experiences that are so new, that are frustrating, um, it can be really scary to be that rageful if you're not used to your anger, if you don't know
yeah,
how to hold space for that or
yeah.
that level of intensity. And so being able to cultivate a positive self talk, which sounds so old school CBT, but really does come from this place of radically accepting, I hate what I'm feeling, but yet here I am. And
Yeah.
how can I support myself through this? And again, through other people, through seeking the medical advice, and also too really acknowledging maybe there is some unresolved stuff that's coming up
Mhm.
that can be worked through with a therapist, because there's always a point that when we're going, if we're not stopping along the way to assess and reflect and to learn, then we will crash eventually, and hopefully it doesn't wait until midlife and then when it all comes crashing down.
Yeah.
But being able to slow down and have, I was just talking to a client of mine earlier about the importance of active rest.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What the hell is that? Active rest?" She's like, "Do you mean just like sleeping?"
No.
Like, no, active rest. I mean, something as simple as going for a walk, but not having your headphones in and not making it a power walk, but walking without the earbuds in, phone is away, and you're engaging your five senses. It's the core basis of any mindful practice, of dialectical behavioral therapy. It's the basis of a lot of interventions of
Yeah.
engaging the five senses and just focusing on, what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you even taste in the moment?
Yeah.
Because that engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our natural insulin shot of Xanax,
Yeah.
basically, that we have access to. And it allows us to calm down. And it's not the cure all, because if our hormones are all out of whack, then we're going to be like, fuck this walk. I don't want to go on this walk.
It's true.
So it's also
Mhm.
acknowledging like, yeah, no, I don't want any of that. That's not working right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting to what will, and having patience for your lack of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about like, I purposely will sit and just be still for a
Yeah.
little bit because, I'm go, 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 go all day, talking all day. By Thursday, my mouth and brain stop working. We joke about it all the time. Every week in the studio, it's like, oh, it's Thursday. Oh, it's Saturday. She's only doing one word cues. This is great. But you're right. There's a place where if I can just breathe
Yeah.
in the moment and be present and not be thinking about what's 5 minutes from now, what's 3 days from now, what's a year from now. I'm just in that moment and take a beat and kind of come to it does. It absolutely kind of syncs our system to where, okay, I can go on to the next thing. And we talked a
Yeah.
little bit about that in the previous podcast. We talked about self-efficacy as a point of understanding discomfort because
Yeah.
we were talking about like how much do we go through when we're making a health and wellness transformation? Are we able to navigate the challenges of not having chocolate every day? Are we able to navigate the challenges of like, I got to do one more set of whatever this is? It's when we build that resiliency, then our body is able to manage stress a lot more. And I've
Right.
found that in my own mental health journey because I definitely feel like there's an improvement there for me. And I'm so grateful that you're talking about that because I think that's a really important thing to talk about. So let's get to some of the core questions that we're asking everybody. Why are you passionate about supporting women in midlife and menopause?
So, in thinking about this question, there's a lot of reasons why, but it's all kind of rooted in. So, I have this photo of me and my grandmother on my desk, my Nana. And I have lots of photos of family members that I've never met but feel connected to. And we live at a time where we have access to data that even my grandmother didn't have, or even my mother. She's 72. She did not have access to the data and the interventions that we have now. So when I think about, I'm the first person in my family lineage to have access to this data and to be able to help get an accurate diagnosis as well as then an accurate intervention that actually works.
Hmm.
It becomes like what feels more like this moral imperative to be a part of this work, given, I've dedicated my life to being a therapist. I'm 15 years deep and still
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
And then to kind of take another step back and to think about everybody that I interact with is also sharing this moment in time in human history. It's very meta, but
Yeah.
sharing this moment in time that we get to be a part of something that our ancestors or family members did not get to benefit from. And I imagine, like, wow, how different would my Nana's life had been had she had access to HRT? Maybe she would have divorced my grandfather because like, who knows the ways, like, because it gives you freedom when you have your sanity. Um, so that is such a big driver because I'm like, it becomes my duty at that point to
Yeah.
be a be a part of this information and to be a vehicle to get this information out there, especially for the ways in which it really, I mean, night and day. Because again, too, if we are going to the doctor saying I'm depressed and anxious, we're put on an SSRI.
Right.
Okay, but we're not actually getting to the root of what's happening here. And so now what? You're going to be on an SSRI for the rest of your life? That's no way to live either.
No, and it's so interesting because like all of the people who have the bigger voices in this and they talk about this consistently where there are more women that are put on antidepressants or some sort
Yeah,
of, serotonin reuptake
right,
medicine and it's not the issue. And
right,
yes, it helps, but it's not going to replace the hormones and
right.
that's only going to work so far. And then that person really needs some HRT. They just need a little bit of boost. They need some estrogen and progesterone to make their body happy again and their brain happy again.
Yes.
Was there well, we talked about that. I was going to say, was there a turning point or personal experience? And we have covered that. I think you've done a great job of that. And I'm so glad that you're saying, I'm not looking back because I think
Yeah,
it's
no.
amazing that this has been a turning point for you in a positive way that you're feeling that probably for
Huge.
me, I just felt like myself again
Yeah.
and a little
Yeah.
more. a little more who I want to be. I was able to kind of live into that space in a much more authentic way. There wasn't
Yeah.
the imposter syndrome because I was just like, this is me. This is who I am. Like I don't know what that other person was going on, but this is much better.
Yeah. You're in the driver's seat again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, what are some of the most eye-opening things you've learned from working with women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond? Be careful. I know one of your clients.
Well, I think that she's a perfect example. We're not going to call her out, but she's a perfect example of the young old. And I've told her this. It's amazing because she has so many social connections and she's a busy bee.
Yes.
And she has like endless I'm pretty sure she has more energy than me, honestly. Um but she is very connected to her family and to her people.
Yeah.
And that is just this feedback loop that keeps on giving. And I think the shift that can happen when you give yourself permission to just be honest with yourself about whatever it is really key. And I was actually reading about, like, well, why is it? What do people say is the reason behind this sort of subset of women who are going through perimenopause and menopause and all of a sudden divorcing and leaving their husbands?
Right.
There's some validity to that. And so if you think about, like, how much people pleasing we do, how much fawning we do. And so that's also why I say, like, embrace your rage a bit and embrace your anger, because your anger and your rage could possibly be telling you something. And again, not to commit a crime, but they're telling you, like, where are my boundaries?
Yeah.
Or where
Yeah.
are my boundaries not? Because
Yes.
that's often an indicator of that. And so we have to also understand our anger is a vehicle too. And
Yeah.
so I think being able to be honest with ourselves about what we're feeling and why is really freeing. I have seen people really kind of change up their lives in big ways where they have this sense of freedom where they're like, wow, I can't believe my life looks like this now. But it required a whole lot of heavy lifting in order to get there. And it's really such an amazing thing to see.
Yeah. I love that. That is so profound. Um, how do you use your specific skills or profession to empower women during this transitional phase? Again, we're going to talk about your favorite person. I just know. So the person we're talking about, who shall not be named, I adore. And she came and worked with me, and I said, here's what I know about you. We've worked together before, so I want you to go and talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody. And so I had reached out to you and said, will you talk to this person? And so the I have seen an incredible transformation in that person from a positive standpoint. She always had her positive pants on. And when she finally hears this, she's going to be like, I'm glad to know I had my positive pants on." I can hear her voice right now. But
She's like, you could have fooled me sometimes. I don't
right,
know.
right. But there was, I know that there was a heaviness for her in this place of not being able to really have the freedom to kind of say, this is where I'm standing in this, and standing in stuff, not from a place of aggression or power or control, but a place of like, no, this is a conviction for me. This is where I need to be. And I know she's gone through some hard stuff recently. So I think talking maybe about how that skill, like I know you helped her kind of walk through some stuff.
It's listening to what you already know.
Mm,
It's not gaslighting yourself. It's not minimizing. It's not making excuses. And, we can make excuses for people that's kind of veiled in a way that we don't know we're making excuses for them. We don't know that we're not holding them accountable. We don't know that we're letting shit slide that we would not let slide otherwise.
yeah.
And so when we are really honest with ourselves, again, that's where real fundamental change happens. And that change isn't always rainbows and sunshine. That change can be really um shattering at first. But the breaking is the point because it's a breakthrough, not a breakdown. And
Ooh.
Yeah, that's true fundamental change. Change isn't always rosy, right? In
Mm-mm.
therapy, they talk about how sometimes things get worse before they get better because
Yeah.
you have to get really bluntly honest with yourself. And the people that I think I would say enjoy therapy the most are the ones that have an easier time being honest with themselves.
Mm.
That's really what they're needing a safe space to help them confront that and to address that in themselves because our mutual friend, once she saw the truth, she was like, "Oh shit, here I go." It was like a arrow. It really propelled her in a way where she was able to automatically know what she needed to do and
Yeah.
unwavering about that. No shame about that whatsoever. And that's the power of following your truth, honestly.
Yeah. That's amazing. Will you talk a little bit more about that, from the perspective of like women? And we know this. I think we've talked about this a little bit when we're on the reformer, um, about how we don't trust ourselves, about how we don't give ourselves credit in the things that we think or feel or kind of have conviction about. Will you talk? Because that's kind of what you're alluding to. It sounds from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. Well, when we live in a world, how do I want to say this?
This was not one of your questions.
Yeah, but it's such a good one. It's such an important one because when we live in a world, I mean, it kind of goes back a little bit to like the common experience of medical gaslighting,
Yeah.
where you know you're experiencing something, but then the person that has the authority to help you is essentially saying, "You're fine." I'm like, oh, I guess I must be fine. And what I hear from people that have experienced some form of gaslighting in their life is, well, I guess that I'm just dramatic, or I'm overly sensitive, or I'm being too negative, or I'm too this, too that, too this, too that, or not enough of this. And oh my God, the list goes on and on. Um, and so the systems in which we live in this country, especially, and not just this country, but the systems that we live in kind of work to keep women confused and questioning their own experiences. And so when we stop questioning our experience, we automatically take our power back. And when we finally start to acknowledge what the truth is within ourselves, we can then speak it and then act on it and kind of fly in the face of the societal expectations or familial expectations or whatever, because we
Yeah.
have expectations coming from every angle.
Right.
Um, so there is a freedom to that. But sometimes that's when women are labeled as a bitch, right? Or
Right.
she's cold or she's insensitive and all. It's like, no, it's probably a principled woman that has boundaries and is very clear in her boundaries and isn't susceptible to being manipulated or smooth talked into bending them.
I always say that I'm really easygoing until I'm not, and then you just get the business end of me.
Yeah.
And and I mean, the people who
Yeah.
know me know that about me. And it's not that I am being um harsh. But I'm like, "No, you have crossed a boundary that, you don't get access to that part of who I am anymore. You've lost the privilege of being in my inner circle. You've lost the privilege of having the warm fuzzy Heather because
Yeah.
now you're not safe for me. How this
Right.
interaction goes is not gonna continue in a space where I'm just gonna accept whatever you put in front of me." And I think that's a very
Yes.
harsh thing for people to grasp, especially where we live in the below the Mason-Dixon line where it's like, "Oh, yeah, no, you have to play nice in the sandbox all the time." No, I don't, and no, I won't. Yeah. Deep breath.
It's the "no, I won't" part, that's the part that gets labeled in some kind of a non-specific way, and it's making me think of, like, the clients that I have who are in their, like, early 20s, and they're trying to find their voice and navigate a very confusing world, and really kind of doing it very, maturely. I don't know if it
Mm,
I have the honor of really seeing very young but very mature and insightful girls, usually it's
love that.
women that come see
Yeah.
me, Um, and that is what they are developing. And so when we talk about women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, that's usually the sort of no bullshit era. That's sort of the woman who's really famous now on social media for the We Do Not Care Club. Like
Yes.
she's taken off because it's so relatable.
Yeah.
It's there's a freedom in that, which comes with a price, because it's not freedom with rainbows and sunshine all the time. Like, it's freedom because I am exhausted from people's bullshit and I have no tolerance to handle it.
Yeah.
And if you're good people, then I'll be good people. And if you're not good people, then I'm not going to give you the same energy back. And that's a
Right.
sense of self-worth. And sometimes when we have a sense of self-worth, it gets confused and mislabeled, because you now become unpredictable to a society that likes our women to be very predictable and quiet still.
Yeah, Karen and I were talking about that, about the reality of like we have been so trained to be meek, that whole
Yes.
concept of like this amiable woman, and especially our generation, like we're Gen X, you're a little bit you're like, I
I'm an
think,
elder millennial.
okay, thank you. But that's why I love you. So there's a place for us where our generation, I think, is really the first generation that was like, yeah, no, but we also were the first ones that, and I said this before, but I can't reiterate this enough. We were the first ones who came out of like, we didn't have to have our dad or our husband or whomever get a bank
Right.
account for us, sign for our loan for our business, or do any of those things. We were able to do all that stuff and are able to do all that stuff now on our own. God willing, we'll get to continue to do that. But there is definitely a resurgence in my generation of like, yeah, no. And there's also statistically the change of like hitting this time in our lives and saying, I want to do something different with our lives. So we were
Yeah.
talking about that. And I think this all kind of ties together in that from what you're saying, there's so much of where we come to self-realization through this time where we're like, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm not putting up with anybody's BS anymore. And I'm going to do what I want to do to fulfill my life, not from a place of selfishness, like an inappropriate selfishness, but an appropriate selfishness
Right.
where, we talked about like putting the air mask on because we have to have a certain sense of self-value, self-care, self-worth, and believing in our abilities and our value just in existing, that there's something there to give back to the world. And it's statistically, it's uncanny to me how many people my age are like starting businesses and totally shifting gears in their career. And that's got to be from some of this kind of place where we're finding those places in our mental health of like, no, it's okay, I can be here.
Yeah. There's a it I don't know how much weight or truth there is, but it's sort of like the idea that hormonal birth control can alter the ways in which we pick our partner. And so even
Wow.
when you think about the ways in which we're not really educated on this really, and there is some data, but a lot of that has been suppressed, right, until recently. Um, but the ways in which so if you think about estrogen dictating neurotransmitters. I mean, probably not a direct cause and effect, but there is absolutely a relationship there. And so if your hormones are dipping, then your mood is changing. And as your mood changes, your tolerance for stress changes, your tolerance for other people's lies change. And so while there's the sort of darker side of these changes, there perhaps in some ways is like a bit of a liberation,
Yeah.
because now you're seeing perhaps somebody's bullshit, whereas before you just made excuses.
Yeah.
And so you reach your point where you're like, I can't, I'm fed up with this. Um, I'm going to make these changes because I'm tired of living in this same way, and I'm seeing it's like the rose-colored glasses perhaps come off, and I'm seeing things in a different light, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And my have an older sibling, I had two, who are in your generation, who are Gen X. I don't remember how old my brother is now is late 50s. But I think about them growing up and like they were rogue. Like Gen X is
All
a
the
rogue
time.
generation.
Raised by wolves, drink out of the garden
Yes.
hose. We still survived. Yes.
Yes, yes. And so there is this like sort of unhinged freedom, I guess, in Gen X, which is really kind of beautiful. But then you pair that with midlife and all of these changes that are occurring. And so it is, I think, back to being a bit rogue, but in a really good way, because now you're midlife and you have resources that you didn't have as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. We have a lot more money, we have HRT, and we have a lot more wit about us. There's some interesting things, about Gen X women that really kinda surprised me. We were, gosh, what was I gonna say about this? I completely lost my train of thought. But there's, there's so much about us in that we were the first ones, like, our generation was the first ones to, um go through every bit of technology, and then when you think, oh, I know what it was. So the other interesting thing is that we were raised by people who were very conformist, and most
Yeah.
Gen Xers typically were not conformists. We are very like like I know me, I do not want to be put in a box. I am not a good employee. I don't want to be told what to do. My husband is a very evolved person because I couldn't do it with round one. I was like, yeah, no, I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want to be able to think for myself. Thank you very much. So, um I think it's interesting that like now that we're in menopause, we're all like, yeah, no, we're not going to take this line down. So this is all a big, huge picture. I'm loving this. This is just making me so excited. Um, so the other things that we kind of looked at were like, what are the myths or outdated beliefs that for you, especially for you, since you've kind of gone through a very recent like epiphany about all of this.
Yeah.
I think we touched a little bit on the fact that you were like, is this really what's going on? Could this really be? What what do you think that will break? Like what do you think will break that once and for all?
I think kind of what you said earlier about having a checklist, bringing it to your doctor and advocating for yourself. I think that's really the because I exist in this bubble of acceptance and normalizing shit that when I leave my bubble, I'm like, "Oh god, we live in a world that is very different than my bubble."
Yeah.
And I love that I get to live in my bubble and I get to bring people into my bubble, and that's a part of what makes it so awesome. But then it's like a harsh contrast at times. But it's kind of a important reminder to be like, I need to arm myself with the knowledge. And yes, hopefully there are and will be continue to be providers that can specialize in this stuff, and can help to lead people through this, but we have to lead ourselves through this, which is the story of women throughout time and history. Like, my god, it really is, and it hasn't changed. And so I think arming ourselves with the knowledge that's there, and there are a lot more people, women now, who are kind of leading the mission, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so there are a ton of resources and a ton more support, which is too going back to the kind of realization of this moment in time. There is sort of this boom of understanding but it's kind of up to us as individuals to educate ourselves so then we can educate our people. I just had a conversation with one of my best friends from college. We were touching base and I was like, this summer, holy shit, like this was so tough for me. And she's like, wait, what? She's like, you're too young to go through that. I was like, no.
No.
I'm like, I
No.
am right on
Yeah.
time.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So I think knowledge really is power, and being able to have these conversations. And, sometimes we may get a little pushback like I have, but that's okay. It goes back to my grad school days of the idea of planting a seed, and
Yes.
maybe it will grow and you may not be there to watch it grow, and that's okay. That's not the point. The point is you tried and you kind of just left it there.
Yeah.
Um and then go where they're at.
Wow. If you could give one piece of advice to women navigating menopause right now, what would it be?
To not back down.
Okay.
Know what it feels like to be gaslit so that you will be immune to it. Know when you are being made to doubt yourself so that you don't. And if you find yourself in a room with a medical professional that is just like so committed to misunderstanding you, then just leave and go find another doctor. That's just not the right one for you.
Wow. What does thriving in the best half of life mean to you personally?
So I thought a lot about this, and honestly, it is just being able to go to sleep, like have like a really nice nighttime routine, taking my supplements, going to sleep, sleeping through the night, and then waking up and going, oh, it's 7 a.m. I slept through the night. No matter what happens, today will be a good day because I slept. That for me right now, today, that is my definition of thriving. When I have a good
Wow.
night's sleep, I'm like, I can take on the world. Because when we're not sleeping, it's an act of war. It is literally an act of war, sleep deprivation. So if
Yeah,
we're not sleeping, we're not functioning well.
it's so true. So true. And how do you take care of yourself while supporting so many others?
I mean, I really have to and do practice what I preach because I'd be such a hypocrite if I didn't. And it's not a perfect science, but I mean, Pilates, movement is so important. And then even like the routine of Pilates, of having it on the schedule and
Yeah.
being like, I'm going to go, that in and of itself is a dedication to me 1 hour during that day. And the beautiful thing too for me is that I don't have to talk when I'm there, you know? Like, I don't have,
Unless you're in class
I'm,
with me.
yeah, which then is lovely. But like, if it's not this sense of like obligatory kind of
Yeah.
thing. So movement, going for walks is really important. Spending what you said earlier about just kind of being alone in the stillness and the quiet. That is such a skill. I ask people, what do you do when you're alone? Oh, well, I'm on my phone, I'm watching TV. Okay, well, what do you do when that's away? And they're like horrified that I would even imagine like suggesting that. But
Ugh.
it's how you get to know yourself, how you get to know your energy. So I'm an introvert, so I spend a lot of time alone in my own energy. I read a lot, I journal. Journaling is very powerful for me. And connecting with my people and laughing and being really, really silly. Laughter really is the best medicine. And then recently I am on a kick of researching my family history, and so that's
Ugh,
kind of fun too.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I did that 2 years ago. I did a little thing for researching family history, and that has been amazing. We did not know anything about my husband's family, and he was like, I said to him, I'm like, your mom didn't tell you all that. He's like, look, I don't want to talk about it. It was amazing because his family, he's from Georgia, and his family is actually from our area. Like
Oh,
his ancestors founded our county, which was just bizarre to I had no idea. I was like, "You had no idea you were this little blue blood in this area, did you?" And he was like, "Are you kidding?" No, I knew nothing. I just knew that my one side was railroad people. It was so fun. But we've had a
wow.
ball kind of getting to know all of this stuff. I love the interesting just the curiosity of it all, but also like I feel like it helps me to understand a little bit more about it, where I came from, helps me understand who I am a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love that. So, Tricia, thank you for your honesty, your wit. And I also want to know how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk with you?
Yes. So my website, you can do online booking. It's cohesivecounselingrva.com. That's the easiest way. You can look at right from my website, you can look at my schedule and you can book a consultation. So there's no commitment, it's complimentary. Just to kind of touch base, tell me a little bit about what you're experiencing. And also, too, honestly, to kind of get a vibe to see, do you really feel like I would be a good fit? Because that's so important to really feel like you can trust the person that you're talking to as a therapist and that they're understanding your experience and what it is that you're seeking help with. So that's consultations are really the way to go.
Love
Yeah,
that.
and it's no commitment. And you don't even have to tell me, like, I don't think it's a good match. You don't even have to say that. But usually consultations go really well because there's this sense of like, yeah, I already know that it will be a good fit. So through my website's the way to go.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for doing this. I'm so grateful. This has been
Thank
amazing.
you.
And I hope that women garner a great sense of self listening to you and they understand that, when we have people who try to make us feel like we're not experiencing what we were experiencing, they are free to say, that is not how I experienced that. And
Right.
it's okay to be in that space and live in that truth. I love that.
Yes.
So this
It's
was great.
everything.
I'm appreciative of this, and this is a great way to kind of touch on mental health during this World Menopause Day podcast. So, again, thank you. And I will be sure, everybody, to make sure that we have everybody's contact info in our show notes. So, if you do want to reach out to Tricia, she is a vibe. She's a fabulous vibe. and, and she's absolutely worth talking to. So, thank you.
Thank you, Heather, so much.
Well, hey, it seems like Ain't Nobody Got Time for That is the theme song to life these days. So thank you for being with me today. I really do appreciate you. And thank you for asking the question, hey, Heather, what about? I hope something in today's episode sparked a shift, a breath, or just a moment of, oh, that's for me. If something resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave us a 5-star review, and help more people find their way to us. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss a minute of real talk and real transformation. Ready to start your wellness journey? Visit theexquisitehouse.com to join us in the studio or check out The Plan, our signature program for movement, nutrition, midlife, and transformation. Remember, keep asking questions. I'll be here with answers and maybe a reformer spring or two.